Hello, my name's Chris Stevens. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Coda Minerals Limited. We are the 100% owner of the Elizabeth Creek Copper Silver Project, which is located in South Australia, just next door to BHP's Carrapateena project and about an hour down the road from Olympic Dam. So phenomenal location. We are now advancing on a fully funded pre-feasibility study, which we expect to deliver towards the end of 2026. We've put a lot of work into the flow sheet to fundamentally rebased a new project. We're very excited as we execute on this PFS.
Chris, good to have you here in London.
Thanks, Matt. Good to see you. Good to see you in person. We're usually on a Zoom call or something, aren't we? So.
Well, you know, it's not that bad.
We get a
feel
proper conversation.
You might enjoy that format once we're finished with this conversation. So right,
the pressure is higher when you're sitting there.
Anyway, we're here in London. We're sort of romping around the resourcing tomorrow, I think it's called these days. Who's there? What are they looking for?
It's an interesting one. Lots of government people, lots of larger companies, and then a bunch of juniors. Right. I felt the time for us, we didn't come last year, we came the year before. Yeah. I felt the time for us as we advanced on a pre-feasibility study was good. Yeah. Certainly the meetings I've had this morning have been incredibly positive, and as always with these conferences, if you just kind of turn up, they're rubbish. So you have to put an awful lot of time and effort into the meeting setting, which we've done this time. So I feel positive about this one.
Okay. Well, look, I think they're going to want to understand the same things that I do, and maybe the audience do too, in terms of you've got a great copper project in the right part of the world, but maybe let's kind of romp through the numbers just to give people a sense of the scale of the opportunity, and then I want to talk to you about execution.
Yes.
So what are the numbers that we need to know?
Right, so as you know, first scoping study was a couple of years ago. It's been updated a few times. And I make no apologies for just relentlessly looking at opportunities and looking to improve the project. And again, you've been along on that journey where the cobalt always kind of held us back a little bit. It's a challenging commodity, both from a marketing point of view and a technical point of view. So the numbers now are based purely on copper and silver. I always had the view that if you can base the project fundamentally off two commodities with deep liquid markets, you're in a much better shape. So the published numbers are $855 million post-tax. And as you know, my views on pre-tax MPVs, everyone uses them to make them look better. It's 1.6 billion pre, I think it was, and about 855 post, which is the one that matters in MPV 7, which is all well and good, but we did that at 9,260 copper, which is $4.20 a pound. And we did that for comparability. You know, New World had put their one out recently, and Rex and Xanadu, and everyone was using a similar price. We're at 11,600 this morning. And again, silver, which is a pretty fundamental part of our project now, it's not exactly doing badly. So we were at $30 an ounce in the original one, and we are now, what, 59 this morning? I think it's a new record. And my view is that silver has a long way to go because, one, it's very useful stuff. There's not enough of it. And the ratio of sort of silver price to gold price still has a bit to climb until it sort of reaches that long-term average. And so at today's spot price, we're talking a $1.9 billion post-tax NPV on the project. That's unbelievable.
IRRs were what?
60% at spot today, about 35% on original assumptions. So again, solid.
You got a bit of headroom. Yeah. You know, however people want to discount these things. And talking works because they will.
They will.
Right, let's talk about the execution of the plans, because there's a bunch of variables. You've done a lot of technical work. We've talked a lot about some of the things that you've been looking at, certainly in terms when it comes to the cobalt, etc. But we're focused on copper, we're focused on silver. Yes. So to get to a point where you've got a PFS and what are you doing? Are you doing a FID after the PFS, or are you going to be doing more scoping studies after that? How do you feel about?
We go through PFS straight into a DFS towards FID.
DFS, okay.
So the plan is to do that. There are obviously some questions we have to answer within PFS before we can scope the DFS. But there are some fundamental bits of work we have to do within the PFS.
Such as?
Right. As we talk, there are 3 drill rigs on site. It's triple use core. So we're doing big diameter core to get met sample, diamond from surface to do geotechnical work, and then obviously a resource update along the way. Now that's pretty exciting because we used very conservative assumptions in the geotech. It's a big, laterally extensive, flat-lying ore body. So
at about what, 500 meters?
400 meters.
400 meters.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
To put it in context, it's about 4.5 square kilometers, which is a think a couple of Hyde Parks. If in Perth it's a Kings Park, which I think is the world's largest urban park. It's big, so that means you've got to put a fair number of drill holes in. But we're quite lucky because we've done a lot historically. So we're 93% indicated in the resource. It's pretty much 100% indicated in the mine plan. So what's exciting is we're going to get a resource update. We're going to get those geotechnical assumptions really tightened up, which should give us a bit more pep. And then we're going to go and re-optimize the mine plan. Now, why is that important? Because when we changed our flow sheet, which I'll talk about in a sec,
remember.
we didn't re-optimize the mine plan because we've got this big drill program coming up and we want to do it from the latest information. But re-optimizing the mine plan should give us an enormous uplift in the economics as well. I guarantee we're mining on economic tons right now in the plan. So we'll probably improve the head grade and then improve the economics through that. We've got to do the work first, but logically that is the outcome I would expect to see.
Well, absolutely. That's efficiency optimization all the way through, please. And even into production, we want to see that.
It is important.
The starting base, look, I go, you're one of those kind of, the size of the prize is really, really interesting to me. You've got a lot of pounds in the ground. They're good grades. Economics is obviously important. But from a starting point of where you're at today, 40 million market cap, right? I look at some of the other kind of copper stories out there, much bigger than you. You know, they're a little bit more advanced, but much bigger than you. So, what's the kind of missing piece of the jigsaw here that people haven't quite got about what you're selling?
So I think there's a couple of aspects. First is the previous flow sheet versus the new one.
Yeah.
A copper cobalt silver with a flotation versus a straight copper silver with a leach, and we've talked about this at depth in detail in sort of previous interviews. But about 20% of the world's copper is produced by a leach. It's fairly standard stuff. That will take us through to final product. And we only put that information into the market in late August. And then we went straight into a raise. Now, in my experience, companies that kind of wait too long after information coming in, everyone knows the raise is coming, you bleed a little bit, it never gets better. But the reality is we've only been kind of in the market with this new information for a pretty short period of time. And of course, some of that is the washout from a raise. You've always got a few meatheads selling everything they can for arbitrage. You work your tail off in these companies, and that's the market, unfortunately, and it breaks your heart, but it doesn't last very long. So the way I see it is, as news flow comes flying thick and fast in the new year, you know, the raise will have washed out. We've got a fully funded PFS. We're still holding up above the raise price, well above the raise price. And that's where it starts to get exciting. So that's the corporate side of things. The technical stuff, without going into huge detail, is that we've got this copper silver based flow sheet. The timing is absolutely wonderful. And again, I've seen New World, Rex, Xanadu, Muramaki, all of these other copper companies, some of which are and have been, because obviously Rex and Xanadu and New World have been taken out, valued much higher than Coda. But when they were at a comparable period in development, you've got the scoping study period, they were much lower in value too. You know, and sometimes I think saying Coda's too early stage, or everything else, a bit like shouting at an 11-year-old for not being old enough. You know, it's just we haven't been listed as long. Some of these companies are around 20 years. We've been around 5, just had our 5th anniversary. And so we have a decent work program. It's funded, and we need to go and execute on that. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm excited. I'm really enjoying the story right now.
So let's get into that then, because as you say, you've got to grow up.
Yeah,
got to do some work. Got to understand it a bit more. But you now understand the process, and I think that's the thing. I want to believe that you and your team can deliver and execute on the process, because it's like you're not reinventing the wheel here. It's fairly standard. You just got to go do it. So what's happening next year? Who's doing it?
Right. You know, I was talking to our chair last week. We're talking about commercialization strategies, M&A versus organic development, and saying what's the timing like? I said, well, the point that you sort of maybe rush to look at M&A outcomes for projects is where you've got a whole bunch of answers and you're a little bit scared of the questions. And we're not in that position. We've got a whole bunch of questions. It's the other way around, wasn't it? A whole bunch of questions, you're scared of the answers. We have some fairly basic questions, all of which I'm happy to talk about. But it's really about answering water. We've got to do the hydro drilling. You've got to re-optimize the mine plan. You've got to do more variability work across the ore body with the MET test work in this new flow sheet. And we've done a huge amount of work on this new flow sheet. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be done. None of this scares me. Right? This is work which was now budgeted, has the funding to do. is in the plan and is being executed on. And they are the basic phases through PFS. So as I say, your basic geotech, water, variability, mine optimization, finalizing and confirming your mining methods. So long hole open stoping versus a room pillar mechanical cut, or a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
If I was a gambling man, it'll be that. So all of these questions need to be answered. Not afraid of any of the answers.
What about these kind of long lead item things like the environmental and all permitting and all any other permits that you need to? Where are you with that?
We have, so the South Australian government is a really good process. It's called a scoping process.
Yeah.
I hate the name because it sounds like a scoping process. It's a scoping study, but it's not. It's about scoping your environmental approvals. So where we are, for example, noise isn't going to be a big problem because we're miles from anywhere.
It's surrounded by mines.
And so it's surrounded by mines.
Yeah.
And so it's really about making sure that you right-size the approvals.
Yep.
We've been through that process. We're just finalising the final report now. That's wonderful for me because I'm a scope, plan and budget guy, right? I want to see that. So the fact the government has forced the team to do that and do it very professionally, it's about a 400-page document. As a CEO, I can look through that and I know exactly what that process is. So we're executing on all of the early studies, everything from dust monitoring. Obviously, water is the key one, and we'll be drilling those bores very shortly. That's now, when we increased the size of the raise from 8.3 to 12.3, that gave us all the money we needed to do those critical path hydrogeology, hydrogeology drilling as well, because it's not cheap. And so that's exciting.
Talk to me about the team. Come back to the team, because it's like when you're going through scoping studies, it's not a case of this is a desktop exercise. You're building it to a certain standard, or building the data to give it to someone else who may have a balance sheet to want to build it, or to allow you to raise the capital to build it yourselves. So talk about the team's relevant experience at this stage and moving forward into a proper advanced development company.
So there is no more important study than a pre-feasibility study. That is the point where you have all the ability to influence.
Step change, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your ability to influence in construction a poorly done PFS is very limited. And there's one of the sort of real experts on this, the guys at Enthalpy have written many academic papers on it, but just take it, that's what it is. So we have to get this right. Colin Moorhead, chair of the technical steering committee, PT Medeka took that right through to $1 billion project. Obviously, 20 years with Newcrest before that. So he's got big company experience, but he's also got small company street fighting, ability to get stuff done without overscoping everything.
Yeah.
We've just hired the project manager and or study manager, chief technical officer from Xanadu. So again, someone who's just delivered a PFS there and had the company acquired. Why have we done? Well, it's obvious why we've done that. He's phenomenal at what he does, and he's got a recent track record of doing it in a very similar sized company. So the third member of this technical steering committee is Robin Marshall. Him and Paul on our board have put 17 projects into production over the life of mine. So again, pre-feasibility and development experts. So you've got Colin, myself, and Robin on the technical committee, and then you've got the major group reporting in. I've just hired a phenomenal, very experienced mining engineer to oversee the technical side, be on the owner's team for the mining engineering. Metallurgy, we work with Strategic Metallurgy. They developed the flow sheet Nova Bollinger, for example, huge track record of delivery there as well. And we're just looking at engineers, but it will be a household name. We've done tenders to some very good companies with a lot of copper experience.
It's funny actually, because over the years I've talked to various groups or individuals who built, big projects, and they talk about, we had economic geologists, and they had a very economic design team, and then we've got an economic development team, and then we've got the build team who need to focus on, and you forget that the big guys just look at all stages for maximum efficiency. Clearly the operability must be done in a way which is affordable and allows you to make money, etc. But 90% of my conversations are not like that.
No.
The big guys know what to focus on all the way through. So when you say the PFS is a really big step change to big boy territory from junior exploration, just hoping to find something along the way. How much more efficient can you get with the data feeding in terms of, I know you're drilling, you talked about being able to drill, needing to drill, and it will feed into what is already a big data set. So tell me about because it's expensive, that's my point. Why do you need to fill in that missing data now at a point where perhaps there's other things to focus on?
Look, the missing data is really geotech and met variability for us. Our scoping study was near as damn it a pre-feasibility study on its own in terms of the range and the depth of the information.
Yeah.
But there are just two key areas which needed that work. So that needs to be done.
It's not a huge amount.
No.
Right, okay.
$4 million or so. It's not.
Right, okay.
It's not massive.
But that's a lot, isn't it, as a percentage of the available cash? It must be really important to you.
It's really important. It's a big laterally extensive ore body, and I can't change the geometry of the ore body, and that comes with advantages as well. It'll be, as I understand it from the mining engineers, a real dream to mine in many ways. There's much harder underground mining to do.
Yeah.
But the reality is every hole does, you need that range across the ore body. And, there are juniors who will try and fudge it and use non-representative composites and, all of that. That's not who we are, for a couple of reasons. One is I'm still very much working as if I will inherit all of the problems that we create now.
Right.
One of the things I really like, working with a study manager is who made that decision is a really important question, right? Who made that decision? How did it get made? And making sure it's documented right the way through. So we work as if we're going to own all our own problems and definitely own all our shortcuts so we don't make them.
Right.
The second is I have a lot of respect for people who do due diligence. They're very bright, and there is no more uncomfortable feeling than sitting in a meeting and having your backside handed to you because everyone in the room knows you cut a corner. So we're just not cutting those corners.
Right.
We're doing it right first time, documenting everything correctly, and getting it done. I quite like that. I find pre-feasibility studies kind of exciting.
No, I saw slightly mockingly, I think, I can't remember before we had this conversation, sitting in a room next door with, in London, and there's on stage are 5 Canadians talking about how governments, federal and provincial, fund or help fund projects. Now, clearly they're only going to fund something advanced development.
Yeah.
In Australia, what's that like? Because I don't know what the copper scale of the copper market is in Australia.
Yeah.
I don't know what interest or quite frankly, financial help the Australian government give you, or whether you have to sort of continually look outwards. Because there's a kind of ex-China movement going on, and then there's the US saying we will get involved. What's the mix look like out there when it comes to funding?
One of the constants I've found, and you can just see this in the data when you look at other peers as well, is that everyone wants to see a PFS done. That's just a constant. You just can't advance a project with a scoping study and not a PFS. You need a reserve, and to have a reserve, you need a PFS and all of those things. You need those questions answered. So that's why we're absolutely doggedly answering those questions. That's why we've raised the money. We didn't take the dilution for fun. It was like, this is how much we need. This is what we're going to do. We believe this is absolutely value accretive. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done it. The government side of things is interesting. I mean, obviously with copper and silver, you've got a fairly important commodity for Australia, but copper's not.
Do they do anything with it?
Do
they concentrate it? Do they ship it? What happens?
I mean, we'll be producing cathode, so that's a pretty saleable product.
Okay.
But
not inward, it's an outward.
Very much so. It'll end up in Japan or Korea or possibly China, who knows? I mean, it could end up in Australia. That's the question we haven't answered, and it's not mission critical to answer it right now because it's cathode. You're not trying to market an esoteric concentrate, for example. But the reality is, copper's not actually on the critical minerals list in Australia, for example.
Okay.
Nickel is, but copper isn't.
No.
So you can, if you can explain that.
You're focused on things like getting people under the age of 16 off social media with the important things.
The really important things is, just making sure that they're only on Murdoch
media. The backbone of Australia. We better step away from this one. That's incredible. So not on the critical minerals list, which is extraordinary from seeing what we're seeing in every other, Europe, North America, China, obviously. Interesting. That's why I'm trying to understand the Australian market. So for you, does that mean that Aussie retail don't really look to copper in the way that maybe, say, North Americans do in terms of getting that value?
I think they do. You got to remember, Australia produces 4% of the world's copper. And so it's not a massive thing here. And of the 4% produced, most of it's BHP. You've got Olympic Dam and Carrapateena, and eventually Oak Dam West coming online. And I think Australian retail investors have been a little bit spooked by some of the copper stories out there as well around Mount Isa, and there's been a few challenges there, so it does take a little bit. I think it is exponentially harder to sell a copper project to retail investors than, say, gold. But I'm an economist at the end of the day. And 80% of copper is produced by 20 companies. You know, I mean, what's Escondida? Over 1 million tons per annum in a 23 million ton market. These mines will not last forever. The grades are getting lower, they're depleting. There's fewer and fewer large, I mean, just a fact, there are very few large discoveries out there. And so you've had things like Kamoa-Kakula come online, but Grasberg coming off. Now, obviously that was tragic and what's happened, but you can see the disruption just from one mine. These mines are depleting. There are not new mines coming on, and you've got a very demand-driven market as well. China's real estate market sector seems to be stabilizing. You've got massive increase in forecast demand for data centers, obviously AI, electrification, vehicles. And then a lot of China's national grids, the electric grid is aging as well. And so that's a major driver of forecast replacement. So you've got huge demand, you've demonstrably reduced supply. You need 30 coders to replace an Escondida. And where are they coming from? Because there are not 30 coders in Australia. There's 5 or 6 development projects, of which only 2 or 3 are credible. So it is quite unusual. But I think retail hasn't really followed on from that, and people are still buying Bitcoin and gold.
Well, it does feel like, also, like you've said, you know, people do want to see this PFS. They want to understand, you know, that kind of de-risk assessment of what your project's capable of. Ultimately, your team's ability to, you know, raise the capital to execute on that. So, end of 26, we're looking at PFS. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. From there, we go into a DFS mode.
Yeah.
How does that take?
About a year.
About a year as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are trotting along at a fair lick.
And look at our shareholders. I mean, if you're a shareholder and you're watching this, thank you, because you know the last rights issue was massively oversubscribed. My lawyer, he's a good friend of mine. He's like, Chris, you know, I've seen a lot of these not even make 50%.
Yeah.
And again, shareholders have looked at this and said, I think they've said, look, yeah, it's been tough times, but we understand that management has a plan. Management is going to execute. I will work my absolute tail off to get this done. I don't care what it takes. We'll hire the right people. We're going to work long hours. You know, I'm a dig deep kind of guy. I don't mind a bit of discomfort. I'm a distance runner and various other sports, and I think that goes into my working life as well. You know, I like a bit of pain, and we're going to get through that no matter what. We're funded. Shareholders have supported us. You've got to get a PFS. Yeah. If it hadn't been for that awful post-COVID drop and slump and everyone getting sold down, we'd have been able to raise the money and just get on with it. We'd probably be closer to FID right now, but it's been a tough few years. You saw that drop in copper, drop in China, post-COVID. I feel like we're coming out of it. I feel like copper's moving.
I think copper's moving, but I also think the simplicity of your stories starting to come through. Yeah, like I know in the back you're working away, you know, furiously. It is more complex, but if I just take it on a fundamentals basis, you've got something which is comparable to some of the much bigger copper stories that we see and have on our platform. I'm delighted to have them on our platform, but with a little bit of talk, a little bit of delivery from you in 2026, that talk will start to manifest. So appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Go next door and preach.
I shall.
The phrase is.
As you can tell, I'm not afraid to eschew espouse the virtues of this project. I do believe in it very well and very strongly, and you know, we like working at Coda. We get stuff done.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay, leave it in your capable hands.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Cheers.